Probably our communication has been a bit ordinary, I must confess that. I mean, if people are starting to worry about those issues, then perhaps we haven't communicated well. I'm not saying they're not important issues. What I am saying is that there are some major concerns that we have that we are trying to address.
There's a new guard running the Merewether Club these days, and it's goodbye boardies and wetsuits and hello fancy dress. The traditional start of the club's annual surfing calendar was held in a solid swell. Local identity Daniel Lowe put on his best dinner suit for the occasion, and not even a pair of hush puppies could hold him back.
Got an image to uphold. I'm always dapper, work as a construction worker, so when I get the chance I always dress up.
Catwoman, otherwise known as Reece Smith, was swinging in the 1.5 metre waves until he got a nice little cover-up that snapped his board. Paul Picton, alias Dougie the Pizza Boy, delivered a few hot rides, but it was 70s retro sensation Paul Mountford that stunned the spectators. He was riding by the seat of his pants until he almost lost them.
Tried to stand up on the last wave and the seams just had a bit of a blowout and I was losing my flares coming in. Well, I thought I was going to have to walk up nude. I was stressing. Too many girls up there.
The club's first serious contest of the year will be held next Sunday. It was a wet Wollongong night and the Wolves were on the attack. But the horizontal rain didn't bother midfielder Milan Blagojevic, who was quick to bag one for Newcastle. There were some solid shots at goal from both sides. But the Wolves proved their own worst enemy with an own goal by David Savinsky. It was a devastating moment for Wollongong, but a welcome boost to Newcastle, now second on the NSL ladder with 28 points. The people of Stockrington near Minmai spent most of today watching the rise and fall of Blue Gum Creek. A small community of about a dozen homes was cut off when rising waters enveloped the bridge on Dog Hole Road.
We had really heavy rain this morning, really early, and it was right up to the bridge when we left. So you sort of always, when it's at the bridge, you always hope that you don't get any more rain while you're out. So
I'm amazed to think the water could get this high overnight. my little granddaughter was saying this morning, Pop, do you think it'll be over the bridge and we won't have to go to school? I said, oh no, I don't think so.
Locals say a knee-high flood level across the bridge last occurred about a decade ago. Meantime, over at Rutherford, more than 800 school students were given the day off when parts of the high school flooded. The school's stormwater drains couldn't cope with the early morning deluge, with water even dripping through ceiling light fittings.
3 classrooms have quite significant water damage and a number of the walkways are leaking, so we thought it best in terms of student welfare that if with parents' approval that they kept their students home today.
And at Tighes Hill, a flood on Industrial Drive saw some motorists getting radical to avoid the water. Paul Lobb, NBN News.
There's more than just training going on midweek at Newcastle United these days, with negotiations getting underway with the 13 players off contract at the end of the season. The group consists of a number of top-grade regulars, but with the club looking to recruit and move from a squad of 24 to 20, it's expected only half will be retained.
I think it's fair to say that it's obvious that with the reduction in the squad and the addition of 2 or 3 to the squad from outside, that we're not in position to re-sign all 13.
Added incentive then for the remaining games, with Mark Wilson declared fit for Friday's clash with Adelaide City. Just where he'll slot into the side, though, remains unclear, with the midfielder expected to jockey for position with an in-form Peter Sekenis.
He played extremely well, Seka, but at the same token, Mark Wilson has done a great job for us prior to that, so it'll be interesting to see what happens.
Adelaide hasn't been an easy target for Newcastle in the past, with some Robbie Middleby magic salvaging a draw in the first half of the season. His teammates, though, are looking forward to the home ground advantage this time.
I guess teams are coming to Newcastle now and saying, oh, they're a decent team and it's going to be a tough fight for us. So we've just got to go out with the confidence that we've been going out with and to get the results.
Colin Baldwin, NBN News.
Storm and Kev look like any other happy, well-loved and cared-for family pets. But Russell Clark believes thousands of greyhounds are put down at the end of their racing careers every year in Australia and has started an initiative in the Hunter to give the canines a second chance at life.
I guess the greyhounds are probably up fighting a more uphill battle to be rehomed than any other dog, and it wasn't something that I thought about. I just I happened upon it purely accidentally.
At his own expense, Mr Clark has re-educated and adopted out 22 former track dogs to families in Queensland, while he's kept his own dog Storm after her career ended. And now he's set to change hunter people's perceptions. Their body shape and narrow snouts can often give the impression they're aggressive, but Russell says it couldn't be further from the truth, adding they're as loyal, smart and friendly as the best breeds.
They're a clean dog. They're one of the cleanest breeds of dog you can have. They require very little maintenance in that area, but they're great. They're great house dogs. I mean, they're happy to lie around on the lounge, on the floor. They'll follow you,
Mr Clark says anyone wanting to adopt a dog should contact their local greyhound club. Cullen Robinson, NBN News. There's a relaxed and confident feeling in the United squad, and why not? The team is riding high on the NSL ladder. But with injuries healing, the pressure is really starting to mount for positions in the starting lineup, and no duel is as fascinating as that between Mark Wilson and informed sub Peter Zakenis.
Look, it's a nice problem, you know. Seka come in. Look, whenever Peter's come in and played for us, he's done great for us. Willow equally as well.
Every week's a competition for places, not only me and Wilson, just the whole team. I can play in a few positions, so can Wilson. So it's a whole team in competition, I suppose, and that's what makes us a good side.
United rediscovered its early season form last week against defending premiers Wollongong. At home tonight against Adelaide City Force, Newcastle will face off against former Socceroos Carl Viet and Aurelio Vidmar. They're just two stars in a team that United coach Ian Crook says has been unlucky all season.
We watched Adelaide play last week, and they were by far the better side against Parramatta, who had beaten us the week before. So they'll come here, they've got pace in important areas and a lot of experience, so it's going to be a tough game for us.
Cullen Robinson, NBN News.
The satirical campaign is the brainchild of Hunter Valley Wine Country Tourism. The TV as well as print advertisements will start appearing this weekend.
Our market is about 70% Sydney based, and as more areas encourage visitors such as Orange, Mudgee, Cowra, etc., it makes our job harder. We actually have to encourage more visitors to the Hunter Valley, and this is certainly one way to do it.
Last year, an estimated 1.5 million people visited the vineyards, with wine tourism worth an incredible $250 million a year to the local economy. Traditionally, it seemed like wines versus mines, rival industries fighting for land riches. However, Colin Allied has astounded many by contributing $150,000 towards the campaign.
I think we have a very neighbourly attitude to one another, and I think that's shown by Colin Allied.
Vanessa Trezise, NBN News.
He was trapped for approximately an hour. He was released by Dungog ambulance with assistance from Westpac Rescue Helicopter.
The riders and passengers were given some last-minute instructions at the Westpac helicopter base before setting off on the first leg of the Harleys for Helicopters fundraising tour.
There's 35 permanent riders that are going to do the whole tour. Then it's an unknown quantity. We're expecting when they get to Sydney they could pick up anywhere in excess of 100 bikes that'll follow them down to Wollongong.
The tour runs until the 22nd of February, taking in towns across the state including Moree, Ballina, Tamworth and Coffs Harbour. The money raised will be distributed evenly between the service's 8 helicopters. And even by the time the riders had set off, $30,000 had already been raised.
Because it's the first time we've done it, it's a little bit unknown. We do the push bike ride each year and that raises in excess of $60,000. So we expect this could be just as big as that.
Meantime, one of the country's biggest clubs opened its new national headquarters in Newcastle. The Camper Van and Motorhome Club of Australia has more than 27,000 members on its books. Among the special guests attending the opening today was Don and Erica Whitworth, the #1 members of the organisation. Cullen Robinson, NBN News.
To be known as the National Service and Combined Forces Memorial, a monument honouring those who made themselves available for conscription, was unveiled in Civic Park. Following a brief march, servicemen and women gathered to pay their tributes to a group of people who until now have been ignored by successive federal governments.
A lot of people actually served in the armed forces who never went to a war zone, not through any fault of their own or not for any reason really other than luck.
During Australia's involvement in conflicts between 1951 and 1972, there's more than 700,000 men and women who served but don't qualify as war veterans. Today's unveiling was a chance to recognise their involvement in wartime activity.
It would have been very difficult for those who didn't receive that, just a thank you. But this, I hope, completes that and really underscores and underpins the fact that what happened with that phase of our lives was just as important as any other phase, and they've been recognised for it.
And it's a chance to get together with old mates.
I guess there'll be an odd cold ale consumed, yes, later on the day, yeah.
Stephen Mount, NBN News.
We're looking at catchments and their effect on waterways, because we want people to understand whatever they drop in the street or in the park or in the paddock has got a very good chance of getting through the stormwater system into these beautiful waterways of ours.
The United boys were hard at work in the gym today, still on a high after their weekend win over Adelaide. Robbie Middleby sealed Friday night's game with this kick that he'd been practising for weeks.
I tend to muck around at training and try to hit it with the outside of the foot sometimes, and never really pays off at training, but to win for the team and get my first goal at home, it was just great.
Newcastle's other goal came from Scott Bailey, who produced the equaliser following an earlier Adelaide goal that looked all too easy.
Yeah, it was a good feeling because I think I wasn't impressed with their goal from a defensive point of view. I felt that I might have been responsible for that goal, so I was glad that I made amends, and for Robbie to come up with the winner at the end was brilliant.
The win was also extra special for Middleby.
Yeah, having my grandfather there, which he's 96 now, he doesn't get to come watch many games because of how old he is, and he said he felt good on Friday, so I thought, yeah, I'll come watch the game, and it was great that I scored at home for him as well.
United is away to the Olympic Sharks next Sunday before 3 home games in a row at Energy Australia Stadium. Paul Lobb, NBN News.
Today's arrests followed on from a number of raids last September, which led to the arrest of several members of the Nomads motorcycle gang in Newcastle and the far north coast. Police claim Operation Strait uncovered up to $3 million worth of stolen property and an alleged drug distribution ring behind the supply of $16 million of amphetamines in the Hunter and Tweed areas. Of today's arrest, fresh charges were laid against 10 out of 11 people arrested last year, and new drugs and firearm charges against 9 gang-related members who were bailed from Newcastle Court today.
After analysing all the evidence we gathered, the charges are somewhat enhanced, and there are a lot more further charges placed on various people before the court.
The court was told one of the most serious allegations related to the Sergeant-in-Arms of the Newcastle chapter, Richard Walsh. Police claim the alleged ringleader was behind the supply of more than a tonne of amphetamines over an 18-month period, a record haul with a potential street value of $48 million. The president of the Gold Coast chapter, Todd Little, was also identified as another alleged ringleader, charged with the supply of more than 40 kilos of amphetamines. The case will come before Newcastle Court again in April. Helen Kapalos, NBN News.
Behind the scenes, a battle has been brewing in the lead up to this year's Newcastle show. Things have turned nasty with the Show Society claiming some of its members have been intimidated by mystery attacks including stone throwing and tyre slashing. And while they're not entirely pointing the finger at the Showman's Guild, organisers of the rival Spears Point event, their concerns were put to police today at an annual pre-show meeting.
It is a strategy, I think, really to try and get people to not come to this event, and particularly exhibitors not to come.
We don't condone any of that, and if it does prove to be one of our members, they will be dealt with accordingly through our code of conduct and the rules of our organisation.
Both the Showman's Guild and the Show Society are now busy trying to lure crowds, with the events just 3 weeks away. While both groups continue to pull out the big attractions, clearly one show will have to go, and the big winners will be showgoers. This year they'll have 2 events to choose from. Meanwhile, Lake Macquarie Council will decide on Monday whether to ask for a $50,000 bond from the Showman's Guild for the use of Spears Point Park.
With the winter coming on, we don't want the parkland obviously degraded and not being able to be used for some months.
Lyndall Derrick, NBN News.
Newcastle's two national football teams share the same playing venue and are based out of the same building. Soon it may be from the one office. The Knights' new Deputy Chairman Mike Tyler has begun talks with the soccer club to develop closer working ties, but United General Manager Jock Graham denies he was approached to head up the Knights' operation.
No, they haven't. There's been no formal discussions along those lines at all, and at this point in time I'm very happy with what I'm doing here at United.
Speculation has grown as to who will run the rugby league club since former CEO Ian Burnett and the Knights parted ways. That's only been fuelled by the current meetings between the Knights and United, with the question of ownership rearing its head again.
That's a model that really is pure speculation. At this point in time, no, they're two separate entities, but I'm very, very confident that both organisations can work very closely together for the long term of the city and the region.
United, meanwhile, say they're not bothered by court action that began today involving their current coach Ian Crook. Having just re-signed with Newcastle, Crook is one of three investors searching for money after buying into the initial Northern Spirit soccer club.
Look, it's not an issue for Newcastle United. It's an issue that's periphery to our business.
What is this week? Telling the 13 players off contract just where they stand with the club. Only 5 are expected to be re-signed. With the Sydney Olympic hangover finishing with a number of retirements, the race is on for spots in the top Australian women's water polo squad. And with the growing pool of talent in the country, national coaches still find themselves in a healthy position.
We lost a lot of key players, and it's perhaps still not at the end of this story, but our juniors are coming up.
Given the national youth team recently won world silver, it's enough to have most members of the current squad looking over their shoulder at this week's Australian Club Championships in Newcastle. Olympian Naomi Castle was one to attract plenty of attention in today's first match for her Queensland club side North Brisbane. So too fellow Games gold medalist Bronwyn Smith. Both are expected to play leading roles in the national squad that's selected from this 5-day tournament for pending European tours and the World Cup.
I don't think we are ready to win major tournament yet because of the lack of experienced players.
A host of Olympians will feature throughout the week at the championships, with Melissa Mills, another of the 2000 squad team, on show today. In all, 9 clubs will compete in the round-robin style tournament, with the final held on Sunday. Jim Callanan, NBN News.
Junk like this has become a common sight on creek banks and wetlands surrounding Karua. Racks, poles, mesh trays and shells no longer needed by oyster farmers have been dumped throughout the waterway, choking off fish breeding habitats.
You know, there's some nice sites and it's a shame to see them contaminated with all this material.
But now a widespread government-funded clean-up is underway. A salvage team is removing the junk in a bid to repair the local wetlands.
It's in a wetland area here, and it's an important habitat for the fish and the local environment, so it's good to be able to return it to its natural state.
Tar-covered sticks make up most of the debris. Even the old iron troughs used to dip the timbers in tar remain. At this site on Swan Island this afternoon, the crew pulled an old oyster tray trolley from the water, as well as an Acme engine block.
I think that the oyster farmers are more environmentally aware these days, and I would hate to think that it would happen again once it's cleared.
The local oyster industry has been declining since its peak in the late 70s, and while the history will remain, the junk won't. Paul Lobb, NBN News.
When the taps go on in the shower, around 22 litres of water are used every minute. Multiply the average 10-minute daily shower by a family of 4 and the household's water bill starts to climb. Most water savers use a restrictive device, but when air is mixed with water in a specially designed showerhead, usage can be reduced by 2/3, a yearly cost saving of around $200.
But the most unique part of it is when the water leaves the shower hose, an air bubble covered in water comes out. When that air bubble hits your skin, it pops and the water sticks to you.
Similar to an air venturi in a spa bath, the original system was conceived by Lake Macquarie inventor Arnold Delaney, unhappy with his showering experience on board a cruise liner.
There's got to be a better way to save water and still have a decent shower, and I think these units here have proven it can be done.
During the last decade, the product has been improved and modified and is now manufactured at 2 Lake Macquarie plants and assembled at the company's Arcadia Vale headquarters. It was featured at a recent trade mission to Fiji, which offered advice and guidance to innovative Australian companies.
And that collective brain power made a really successful trade mission possible where, as an individual, we'd never be able to do that.
Demand is growing. The Williamtown RAF base has installed the showerhead to help reduce its yearly water usage rate of around 50 million litres, and other products have been developed, including this mini blaster. There's overseas interest in both owning and making the product, but company chief Richard West says he's prepared to sell his house to keep the eco shower in Australia.
We have been approached to have it manufactured in other countries in the world, but we don't want to do that. It's Australian-made brass, it's all made and chromed here, and we're happy to do it that way, but we've got to fund it ourselves.
With the top sides in Australia nominating to play, the Kiwis were always keen to get in on the act. Headlining their A side are 6 Silver Fern squad members and recently appointed national team coach Ruth Aitken.
It is strong, but we only came together 2 days ago, so there's a few things to iron out.
It's her last time heading up the A side and one of the few opportunities to check out the top Aussies before the Commonwealth Games.
We always like to keep checking up on things, as I'm sure Jill will be doing in our neck of the woods.
Valentine's Day may be, but no Kiwi expects love from any of the Aussies, especially from Sydney Swift skipper Liz Ellis.
Certainly not towards New Zealand.
Now the national champions, the Swifts know most teams will be out to knock them off as well.
There's a bit of pressure, but we think that we've got a long way to go before we reach anything like we were producing last year.
2 former National League players have bolstered the new Hunter-based side that will also compete for the first time. The first session of games starts tomorrow morning with the final set down for Saturday night. After months of planning, you could hardly have asked for better conditions to start the $100,000 event. It must have been hard, though, to tee off with the boss looking over your shoulder. But Horizon's own touring pro, Cherie Burns, knows her way around this course. Shaking off early tournament nerves, the 26-year-old holed 3 successive birdies on her way back to the clubhouse to finish 2 over. A shot further back, Rachel Teskey, the Australian having little luck in her first round. Nothing seems to bother Laura Davies, who's no stranger to events like these or to fans. As the gallery snaked its way around Horizons, the multiple tournament winners game followed a similar route, carding a 4 over par 77. In just her second year on the Pro Tour, it's hard to imagine how Spaniard sensation Paolo Marti could improve on her rookie season. Taking out the Italian Open, then the British Masters, the exciting 21-year-old was in sparkling form today to kickstart her year in brilliant fashion. Picking up 3 shots on the first 9, it seemed Marti just couldn't miss, sitting 6 under until the last hole, a bogey, her only blemish to a near-perfect start.
Yeah, very much. I played very straight. My driver was really straight and long today, and I really hit like a lot of pins, so I missed a couple of birdie putts, but it's okay, you know, I'm human, so I can't upset that.
Basically, we saw the aircraft. It was flying in the circuit. It was about 800 feet, and next thing we saw it was the wing appeared to have folded up, and then it just spiraled down to the ground.
Many hands made light work at Newcastle University as several first-year students arrived for their first taste of living away from home. Getting by with a little help from their friends, new students were today welcomed into boarding houses by their seniors. This year, the university has close to 13,000 enrolments, around 70 of those consisting of international students who'll be at the centre of attention throughout the week.
They do tend to stick together a lot, and so obviously we want to support that because it's good, because they have other people there that aren't from the country, but also get them involved with stuff that we're doing as well.
With orientation week beginning tomorrow, there's plenty of activities planned to help new arrivals adjust to uni life.
A lot of fun activities for everyone. It's O week, so just helping everyone move in, settle into uni life, and show them what's ahead for Edward's Hall this year.
For the record, how hard is life as a uni student?
It's not all work. A bit of fun there as well, but yeah, it evens out. It's great.
Definitely in terms of the culture and the nightlife in Newcastle, in the next few weeks, things will be pretty rowdy in town, I would say.
Stephen Mount, NBN News.
I think we're all very lucky to come from a city as we do that looks after its sports people so well.
As crash investigators today sifted through the wreckage, the victims, Luke Morrell and pilot Ewan Duncan, were remembered.
Well, Ewan was a very gregarious individual. Although he's only been here since July last year, he's made quite a wide circle of friends at various levels across the base, and he was a lot of fun to be with.
Training officer Duncan had only been certified to fly the Tiger Moth the morning of the fatal crash, but he was an experienced pilot. There's speculation the plane's right wing may have hit a runway light on takeoff. As the aircraft came into land, witnesses claimed the same wing buckled, the plane plummeting 300 metres into rugged bushland.
I've heard the same report from witnesses, but I can't tell you whether it's true or not. We are here to identify and to get evidence. We are not at that stage to say yes or no.
The Tiger Moth had only recently undergone a major refit.
Ewan Duncan was a Scottish immigrant, an aeronautical engineer with the Royal Air Force, who transferred to the Australian Defence Force. He and Luke Morrell from Canberra became close friends when they were posted to the same unit at Williamtown 6 months ago.
Friends of the airmen have been offered counselling.
I guess it's early days yet and the grief probably hasn't kicked in.
Meantime, the painstaking task of trying to determine what went wrong continues.
The crash happened on a winding stretch of the New England Highway south of Murrurundi. As inquiries into the exact cause continue, police say it appears the woman may have lost control of her car as she drove north on the highway.
But this early in our investigation, we can confirm that the Toyota Cressida being driven by the deceased woman did cross to the wrong side of the road.
Her vehicle slammed into an oncoming Ford Falcon driven by a 19-year-old Cessnock man who had to be taken to Scone Hospital with injuries suffered in the collision. As a result of the impact, the woman's car burst into flames and rolled onto its roof. She died before emergency services reached the scene. Police say a truck driver who narrowly missed becoming involved in the melee is helping with their investigations into the cause.
He was confronted by the Toyota on his side of the road early in the incident. And we understand that the Toyota, in an effort to regain her side of the road, has lost control of the vehicle before colliding with that Ford sedan.
Highway traffic was disrupted for 4 hours while crash investigation police from Newcastle conducted their inquiries. Police yet to release the name of the crash victim. They say dental charts will be needed to positively identify the woman believed to be a 61-year-old from Narrabri. Gary Blair, NBN News.
A coach was being driven along east along Maitland Road, Mayfield, and when it's turned left into Hanbury Street, it's collided with an elderly female pedestrian who was also crossing the road.
Since starring with New South Wales Country and then the wildfires, it always seemed Tim Rapp was destined for big things. Injury may have delayed his call-up, but nothing can stop the promising scrum half this time around.
Happy to be here, and especially after the few injuries that I've had, it's good to see that it pays off in the end.
Rapp was barely playing senior football when his one-time Singleton teammate Steve Merrick made his state debut, but he's thrilled to follow his former mentor's footsteps.
He's been a big inspiration to me, I mean, on and off the field too, just sort of give me that little push along when I get a bit lazy or something like that. So, yeah, Steve's been a great help for me.
Merrick went on to play 2 tests for the Wallabies, but Rapp isn't getting too carried away. He starts from the bench on Saturday.
I think the first goal's to stay in this team for the whole year.
It could now be 3 weeks before Joel Griffiths plays again for Newcastle United. Automatically suspended for 2 after his second red card on Sunday night, the striker may face more disciplinary action in either ways of a fine or a further week out of the game. The league is still gathering reports from the match official and fourth official before making any decision. His replacement in the side will be known tomorrow.
A call to a domestic dispute at a fishing point home almost 2 years ago highlighted how the job of a police officer can change in a moment. Senior Constable Graham Rawdon was wounded by a shotgun blast fired at him by a man he wanted to speak with. The gunman later took his own life. Today, Senior Constable Robert Pascoe was presented with a Regional Bravery Award to recognise his bravery, courage and devotion to duty following the shooting of his colleague. Welcome recognition that adds to the support he's received since the incident.
I commend the service for the support they have given us. It's been great. Yeah. And the other blokes that were with me at the time.
Sergeant Peter Wilson received his Bravery Award after overpowering a woman armed with 2 knives at Belmont South last April. A bushfire that threatened homes at Marmong Point in January of last year saw Senior Constable Sean Lodge receive a Certificate of Appreciation. He assisted the New South Wales Fire Brigades with evacuations during what were described as extremely adverse conditions. Meanwhile, years and up to thousands of hours of work by volunteers in policing were also acknowledged.
These people assist us to do a lot of our work around the stations and go out into the community and do community things for us, and it's just an opportunity for the police service to recognise their value and their worth.
Gary Blair, NBN News.
As the season opener draws nearer, it's not all fun and games in the Knights camp. This weekend's trial against the Sharks is seen by coach Michael Hagan as a chance to see just what he has in reserve.
We've made it clear that we're resting quite a few of our first-grade players this week. We expect those players to play next week against Penrith at Cessnock in our last trial, so it's probably a good opportunity for some young blokes this week just to see what they're capable of and give them a run against Cronulla at Port Macquarie.
An approach his players are only too happy to take with them when they leave for Port Macquarie in the morning.
Most of the guys just looking forward to get out there and getting some time out in the middle and getting the feel of things again.
And with the recent disappointment of the World Club Challenge behind them, Hagan says there were plenty of lessons learnt in the loss to the Bradford Bulls.
It's very hard to know what to expect if you're a young player that's never played in that sort of environment before, but it was a good experience for our guys. I thought certainly for the young players, I think they'll be better for it later on down the track.
we'll move on from there. That's gone with now, so we just look forward to what's in front of us now. Next couple of weeks are important in preparation for the season coming.
And fans are reminded they won't miss out on pre-season preparations altogether. The Knights size up against the Panthers next weekend at Cessnock. Stephen Mount, NBN News.
Tourism operators say they've been taken for a ride by insurance companies whose spiralling insurance costs to cover public liability are no longer affordable. In the Hunter alone, more than half a dozen tourism operators closed their doors last year and several community events were cancelled as a result.
They're saying if something's not done, you could end up with a premium-led recession because the people are just going to have to close their doors like other people have done.
Gathering at a summit in Port Stephens today, operators claim inflated premiums will soon signal the death knell in an industry once touted by economists as a future growth sector. They're hoping to curb a problem which in the year 2000 saw 88,000 claims settled to the tune of $1.2 billion. One solution small business operators have put forward is to make the system more equitable by placing a cap on smaller claims.
I don't think anybody in the industry at the moment would want to disadvantage a person who's got a genuine injury and requires genuine compensation. We're looking to eradicate a lot of the small claims that are clogging up our system and making our premiums very expensive.
The recommendations from today's summit will be aired at a summit in Canberra next month between the state and federal governments. Helen Kapalos, NBN News. The new company, to be known as McGuigan Simeon Wines, will be run under the watchful eye of its CEO, Brian McGuigan. And today the local vigneron was toasting his biggest success yet, which now ensures his standing as a major player in the industry and ranks the new company as the country's second largest wine producer.
It's a very proud day for my shareholders and my board and my staff, and I hope that the Hunter Valley also feels proud of us that we've been able to grow to this level in a very short time.
The South Australian-based company manages 6 wineries between the two states and exports to 20 countries in North America and Europe, and it couldn't have come at a better time for McGuigan on the eve of the company's 10th anniversary next month.
We've gone from a new company back in 1992 to a company now that's valued on the stock exchange at just under $500 million.
And even though Australian export sales have risen exponentially over the last decade, it seems the potential for growth is virtually unlimited, with our sales only accounting for 3% of the world's market.
So I think that the opportunity for us is still grossly undertapped, and that we can probably even double where we stand now.
Helen Kapalos, NBN News.
He was all smiles today. And if everything goes to plan, it'll be smiles all round if Jock Graham has his way. The United CEO tabled a plan at a Knights Board meeting last night, outlining a proposal to unite with potential savings of millions of dollars between the two.
This is a proposal for a joint venture between Newcastle United and the Newcastle Knights. Both sides are Newcastle sides. One plays in summer, one plays in winter.
United stresses that in no way is the proposal intended as a takeover. Instead, just two Newcastle-based clubs sharing administration expenses.
They operate independently at this point in time across winter and summer. A unified approach to sport in this city is an immense opportunity for this town.
It's early days, but already promising signs from the Knights. For the first time in the club's history, the doors have been willingly opened for talks about its future direction.
This venture has merit because there are some cost savings to be made under its structure. But as I said, we need to discuss things a lot further before we move down that path.
But there's one subject that has closed books.
The Knights are a very proud and financially robust football club as premiers and will remain a standalone football club.
Stephen Mount, NBN News.
"30-year-old Graham Gallagher was killed during a fishing trip with friends at the Mile Lakes in December last year. The boat he was in struck an unlit marker. He was thrown overboard and drowned.
Graham was a great guy. He was always there. He would always listen to you. He'd help you out in any way.
The sports-mad council worker lived for his kids, 5-year-old Jamie and 3-year-old Jordan.
Jordan's a little bit young to understand, but hit Jamie like pretty hard because him and his father were really close. So
while the boys have Graham's family and mum Karen for support, Graham didn't have any life assurance. But the spirit of community is strong in Medowie. Locals organising a fundraising day for Graham's children tomorrow.
I'm just absolutely overwhelmed. I cannot believe what they've all done.
Donated sporting memorabilia such as a signed Mark Taylor bat and Knights merchandise will be auctioned off.
There'll be food stalls, drink stalls, all sorts of things for the kids.
The boys' fundraiser starts at Boyd Oval, Medowie at midday tomorrow. Vanessa Trezise, NBN News. More people in the Hunter own their own home than anywhere else in the state, a whopping 69% of the population. But a new report from the Hunter Valley Research Foundation shows that 14% of the community don't believe they can afford to buy or rent a reasonable standard of property. That's up by 3%.
What we've seen over the last two periods is that people are starting to believe that housing is becoming less affordable. And that's the start of a trend. I wouldn't necessarily call it a crisis at the moment.
The change in perception is hot on the heels of new figures showing Hunter property prices made the biggest leap in the state for the December quarter.
Both prices of investment properties and also change of suburbs, where perhaps more affordable suburbs are now becoming very desirable, and we're seeing a lot of investment coming in from Sydney as well as locally, and we're seeing prices increase there.
The Hunter's median house price is now $173,000. The price growth fuelled in part by the government's first home buyers incentives. Vanessa Trezise, NBN News.
Swirling headwinds didn't bother Lauren Hewitt. She took out the 100 metres before backing up for the same result in the 200. Maitland's Mindy Slomka finishing third. Madawi's Jackie Munro devastating in the hurdles, winning comfortably on her home track. Fellow Hunter Bay star Ben Harradine beat his personal best to throw 57.54 metres in the discus to finish third. A great result for Nick Moroney. He leapt to victory in the high jump. It was a battle at the beach on day 2 of the Pro-Am Longboard Series, with surfers throwing themselves into the fight for the $3,000. It was a familiar stroll for Newcastle's Mark Hancock, surfing a stretch of beach that may as well be his backyard. A big upset at the Australian Unity Tennis Masters tournament at Cessnock. Yaman Grab lost the first set 6-3 to defending champion Peter Clark, but fought back to beat the top seed in 3. Crab will now meet fellow Aussie Joseph Siriani in tomorrow's final.
This is the news Knights fans don't want to hear.
I trained really hard Tuesday night. I give it a real good workout, and today's a little bit sore, so I really don't know if I'm going to play on the weekend.
But the number 7 says he'll give it every chance to prove his fitness for Saturday night's clash against the Panthers.
I'm dying to play Burn to Cessnock, but I've got to be smart about it. If I play this game and then miss 6 to 8 weeks, then it's just useless. So I'll get some treatment on it the next 2 days and decide how it is, but I'm desperate to play.
The Panthers will run onto the Cessnock Sports Ground with a slightly understrength side, but the locals won't be taking that for granted.
It's only a fortnight before the start of the competition proper, so everyone's wanting to get out there and put their best foot forward, so I think it'll be a very serious game.
Saturday night is also a rare opportunity for some to play on home soil, and there's plenty of sentiment in the air as the kick-off draws nearer.
Me and Matthew grew up about 200 metres away from the ground, and just spend a lot of time over there, so it'd be nice to get out there in front of the family and friends and people you grew up around, and hopefully have a big game. So hopefully I can get out there.
It's tremendous to get back and play for your NRL club in front of your friends and family, the people you grew up with. So it'll be great to get out there and play on the old ground again.